How expensive is racing? Well, that's easy. It'll take every dollar you give it, and it'll continue asking for more. And if you screw up one corner, all that money will no doubt be turned to scrap. It's an expensive and dangerous game we play. Welcome to the madness. We're talking about the fastest addiction, race cars. Money doesn't solve all issues on track, but you do have to pay to play, and each class has a buy-in. If you want to know about the biggest classes on Dirt, Dirt Tracker has great videos talking about sprint cars and late models, and I will link those down below, but I'm here to shed lights on the grassroots levels of racing. Disclaimer, I am a local racer, and I am local to the Pacific Northwest. Prices are different, availability of race cars is different, and the classes are different. This video is supposed to be educational, rather than a shopping list. Before I get into the educational part of the video, I do have to thank Egan Photo for all of the pictures he has provided for me to use as thumbnails. He's been doing incredible work around the Pacific Northwest, and I can't wait to see what he has in store for next year. If you want to race, you gotta get to the track. I'm not going to cover trucks, because there are much better car and truck buying guides out there. First step, sell your soul to Meta, because it's a very wise decision to get Facebook. Is it primarily for old people? Yeah. Is it full of political nonsense? Yeah. But Marketplace is the biggest source of racing vehicle purchasing I know of. You could try Craigslist or Racing Junk, but Facebook is normally your best bet. If you want something nice and reliable, you can get an open trailer for around $3,000, an enclosed trailer for $7,000, or you could be the coolest person at the track and get a ramp truck. In my opinion, the backbone of grassroots racing. Many great hobby racers start here, and some move back to this class due to cheaper costs and easier maintenance. In all senses of the word, it's the truest form of stock car racing. Now, there are a few types of 4-cylinder classes, and they range from $1,500 to $15,000. The faster you want to go, the more expensive. Honestly, I would say your best bet is getting a pre-built car, and this is the perfect example. A great price and an easy car. $1,500 probably the most common way to start. Another option, similar thought, but this one has parts cars. Definitely something super helpful for 4-cylinders. The other main option is building a car. It's quite the process, but you can get cars anywhere from $300 to $1,000 depending on how clean you want the interior to be, how nice you want the body to be, and how little miles you want on the engine. Then you get a cage, a buddy with a welder, a case of beer, and nickels and dimes later, you have a Hornet. Somewhere to the tune of $1,000 to $3,000 depending on your choice of car and your track's rules. These are like Hornets, but strict. They can be as cheap as Hornets, but the very well built cars with very good parts can get up to 3 times more expensive than the other cars in the same class. And this brings me to a side point. The basic beginner car in a class is usually somewhere around 3 times cheaper than the best cars. There are exceptions, and you can spend almost infinite amounts of money on any car. But as a rule of thumb, 3 times the money is normally the difference between the slow cars and the top-notch parts and pieces. Back to the cars. Another class that's hard to classify as they're different all over the place, but one of the more well-known tuner series is the SCDRA. And here's an SCDRA car. Ouch! But they race for big money, so it's to be expected. Mini stocks are normally asphalt, and thus I'll only touch on them. This one's $7,500 and probably has a heck of a scream tearing down the straightaway. They're probably about as expensive as tuners, but normally rear-wheel drive. The bottom rung of the rear-wheel drive classes as far as speed goes, but some of the best local racing you can ever see. Street stock means a lot of different things in different spaces, so we'll be covering a few, starting with what it means locally to me. As much as I should be starting with hobby stocks or pure stocks, I'm starting with their older, faster brother. These are mostly stock or stock style components, modifications to components, and moved suspension pieces. But still cars deep down. You can sometimes find some pretty beat up cars with some very good bones. I've seen rollers with no motor or transmission for as low as $750. These are not that much more expensive than that. And near the top end of the range, we have a very pretty asphalt street stock. Not a lot of info besides it having a wrap and a modern Camaro nose, which obviously means it's very fast. Pure stocks, normally all stock style components and stock locations. Hobby stocks are more or less the same, but a little bit more heavily regulated. You can find pure stocks and hobby stocks anywhere from $2,000 to near $8,000 depending on the quality of the cars. Also, know that the uniqueness of the chassis can also impact the price, even if there isn't an inherent speed advantage. Cough cough, Dodges and Fords. Here we have a nice pure stock race ready with some extra body panels and a relatively uncommon body style, and a hobby stock with a few spare panels, axle housings, and for another $2,000, another motor. The other option for hobby stocks is getting yourself a car, a cage, and then like 400 other tiny little parts. Probably adds up to $3,000 for a beginner car, or closer to $10,000 for the finest parts and pieces. As someone who helped build their car from the junkyard to the track, it's a ton of work to get it legal, let alone fast. Maybe not the easiest way to get into the class, but hey, you got your own car. In my opinion, the best racing on dirt. All you sprint car nerds with your sunshine shirts, pit viper glasses, and high quality nationally streamed events, yeah, you guys can kick rocks. But yeah, stock cars are great. A lot of them are sold as rollers, and we'll be getting into motors in a little bit. But depending on where you are in the country, rollers can be drastically more expensive, and also depending on whether you're in the off season or not. If you want to get into the class, the cheapest way is to get a slightly older stock car roller such as this one for $5,000, or a completely ready to race car, or an absolute art piece. These last two both come in at around $15,000. Still not as expensive as getting a brand new piece from Medieval, $13,000 before the rear end, body, transmission, and motor, but the best of the best is expensive. Speaking of the best, the pinnacle of hobby racing and the gateway to the professional level of dirt oval. Potentially the most consistent around the state, not counting the Northeast. Like, seriously, what are these modified off of? At least ours have frame horns. I don't know enough about big block modifieds to talk about them, so I'll leave that for part 2 if that's wanted. Modifieds can normally run on any track, providing you know what sanctioning body your car is built to, such as IMCA, UMP, or WSOTA. The steps to get to modifieds normally start with sport modifieds, or just B-mods. These are technically a step below stock cars as well, but they're meant to be a rung of the ladder headed towards the highest levels of dirt racing. Older rollers can be around street stock prices, and newer ready-to-run cars can be at stock car prices. But, like stock cars, it's a national division that you can run anywhere. A UMP A-mod roller for $5,500, and from what I've seen on Facebook, this sort of price range is not uncommon. And now, the very shiny, very fast cars. A 2019 with the best parts and pieces for $14,500, with no shocks, motor, or trans. Adding the shocks back puts it to $16,000 flat, and then put the motor and trans in for another $10,500. And then a 2020 from a very respected racing family, so it's easy to assume they have all the nicest parts and pieces as well. $18,500 for a roller, then $10,000 to put the motor and transmission back inside. And then a year of tech support from a driver that has most likely won more races than I've ever attended. Yeah, it gets expensive, but don't worry, it gets much better when we look at consumables. VP 110 is anywhere from 12 to 20 bucks a gallon depending on where you get it, and you go through about 5 to 7 gallons at least per night. And it isn't uncommon for some well-built 4-cylinders to run that too, along with street stock, stock cars, modifieds, whatever. You could run 4-cylinders, hobby stocks, and I've even seen a race-winning A-mod run pump gas, but that's pricey these days too. Hoosier G60s, the tires that most modified street stocks and stock cars use, are $150 per tire new, but you can find takeoffs that run as little as $10 a tire. You just need to know how to get the speed back out of them. The beating heart of a race car. Obviously, know what class you're getting into before you get the motor. These are off of Speedway motors, and this IMCA sealed 602 is $7,200, a 604 for $9,800, and this IMCA NASCAR Sealed 360 for $8,000. But, like tires, you can get them on Facebook. 602 for $6,000, and a 604 for $5,500 with the carbon headers for another $18,000, although it's too late to grab this one. There are other parts, but I don't want to go through every heim joint and seal, but I hope to give you an idea of what it takes. Now, I have a hole in the dirt that I need to go throw some more blood, sweat, and bills into. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all in the midst of the madness again.